Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of PreVeil's Compliance Corner. I am Orly.
I'm Noel.
All right, and you are, lucky you, going to be here and waste another 15 minutes of your life hearing all about compliance. Actually, we hope, but we hope at the end of this, you are a little bit wiser, a little bit more knowledgeable, and maybe you had a laugh or two. And Noelle has told me we have to get through this quickly because she has a lot of compliance work to do.
So much to do.
So much to do. Well, I'll tell you, Noel, it's a good thing I just signed up for the New York Marathon because I'm in training. So not only will my body hopefully move fast, but my mouth will start to move fast too.
You're going to be able to just go, 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 go. I like it. I like
it. So what, without too much further ado, why don't we jump in to today's topic?
Done. An exciting one. That is definitely one that I am
noticing. You look like you're a lot taller than I am.
You want me to slouch?
No, it's bad for your posture. I should just get a phone book to sit on.
I'm telling you, you're not going to be able to find a phone book. Like that's just, it's 2022, really.
It is. And the reality to anyone who's watching this video is we're actually not that far off in height. I think it's just that Noelle has a problem with her ego and is trying to be taller than I am.
Feeling tall.
Yeah.
It's just this chair. That's all it is. The chair is cheating for me. Well,
I'll take you at your word. Let's get back to FedRAMP. All right.
FedRAMP. So FedRAMP is the Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program, as you can see on the bottom here. And it's been around since 2011. So late 2011 was like December 8th, I think, or something when they signed it into law. It was a memo signed by the Office of Management and Budget. So OMB, right? It was signed in order to provide a cost-effective, risk-based approach for the adoption and use of cloud services. So what does that really mean? Essentially, it was the idea that the government wanted to be able to use COTS products, which is commercial off-the-shelf products, internally in the government. So, if the government needed a database that already existed out in the commercial world, they wanted to be able to buy it and implement it within their organizations and agencies. The problem with that is that there wasn't any sort of security standards before FedRAMP. Well, I mean, there were some, but there was nothing really centrally located that everybody could sort of be a part of. Now there is FedRAMP. So if you were that database that wants to sell to a government agency or any sort of cloud service provider, really, but we'll use that example, then you could go to an agency and they could say, yep, we want to buy this. That sounds great. And then you would have to go through an ATO process.
All right.
What we're going to talk about next.
We're going to talk about. All right. So, they always say the points of a good speech are to tell people what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So we just told them what we were going to tell them, tell them what we were going to tell. Anyway,
we're going to tell them, I think.
Yes, we're going to talk about FedRAMP today. What's the difference between FedRAMP equivalent and an ATO, and how do we become FedRAMP compliant? So if you were looking for the flight to Detroit, you're on the wrong plane. Get off now, get back into the airport and try and find the next shuttle off to Detroit. Here we're going to talk about FedRAMP.
And this is important for people who are have a DFAR 7012 clause, and we will get to that later as well. So if you are interested in how the FedRAMP service providers and DFAR 7012 are interrelated, that comes later in the show. So stay tuned.
All right. Let's get this party started.
Do it.
What is FedRAMP?
So again, if I am that database that wants to go work with the government and the government says, yes, I want to have you here. This database is way easier to use. It's a commercial off-the-shelf product. It's so much simpler and easier to implement. One of the advantages for the government going with a commercial off-the-shelf product is that it's a lot cheaper, it's a lot easier, and it's a lot faster to implement. Because if you think about it, if there's a government product that has to be created, it can take significantly longer to go through the bureaucratic red tape, if you will, on the internal sides, especially of the DoD, but any part of the government. Whereas a commercial off-the-shelf product, you just go buy it. Like,
doesn't need to go that process.
Precisely. I talk to the salesperson, I get some sort of quote. I'd say, yep, here's the purchase order. Everything is signed. Everybody says it's great. This is, we have an implementation. It's probably not going to be very long. And then you're done and you're off to the races. Well, the problem, of course, is that, like we said earlier, there was the security issue with that before 2011 when FedRAMP was established. So now FedRAMP has a set number of security controls. Currently, we're in what's called version 4. So it's actually the 853. It's NIST 853 standards is FedRAMP. The 853 standards are in revision 4 currently, as of this recording right now, which is in the middle of June. By the end of June
16th.
Yes. So by the end of June of 2022, there should be, that's the goal, is there should be the revision 5 will be out, which is different. So revision 4 currently, where we're at right now, has 325 controls. So for all of the people out there who are thinking, man, CMMC with 110 is a whole lot. No. FedRAMP is 325 right now. Now, it's so many. But revision 5 has actually kind of altered some things. So it actually comes down, I think, to like 305 or 306, but it's still 300. So it's 3 times the number that you have to do practically for CMMC. So just, thank your lucky stars. You don't have to do it if you don't have to. Right. But again, this is important for anybody who's coming in looking for DFAR 7012 compliance, especially. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more later, but that is very, very important. So one thing I do want to talk about is there's 3 different levels of FedRAMP. Much like there's 3 different levels of CMMC of like level 1, 2, and 3, FedRAMP has a low, moderate, and high. So low is exactly what it sounds like. It's got less controls. Moderate has slightly more, and high has the most. It's very much what you would expect. There are some agencies that only need a low FedRAMP assessment for whatever commercial off-the-shelf product they're using. Right. Most of them are going to need moderate. That's pretty standard. And only a few of them will need high.
So does that correlate with like CMMC level 2? If you're at looking to meet level 2, you probably need FedRAMP moderate.
So it's kind of like that, but not it doesn't exactly one for one, but it's a good sort of like thing to keep in your mind, like as a guidance. Yeah, that it's similar to that. And this is not something that every company is going to need. Having a FedRAMP moderate or a FedRAMP high or low or whatever, as like assessment is not going to be necessarily needed by everybody. So let's go to the next question, because this is going to be really important too.
All right. So what's the difference between FedRAMP equivalent and ATO?
I'm so glad you asked, Orly. So
brilliant that way.
So a FedRAMP equivalent means that's actually kind of a tricky sort of situation right now. This is where we start talking about DFARS. So if you actually look into DFAR 7012, the exact wording states, if the contractor intends to use an external cloud service provider to store, process, or transmit covered defense information, which includes CUI, CTI, ITAR, all kinds of stuff, in performance of that contract, then the contractor shall require and ensure that the cloud service provider meets security requirements equivalent, that's the word equivalent, to those established by the government for the Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program, or FedRAMP moderate baselines. Well, that's a whole bunch of blah, blah, blah. What does that mean?
Yeah, I was about to say I got of that.
A lot of like, blah, 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 blah. What that basically translates into is that if you are anybody who has a DFAR 7012 clause in your contract, and that's pretty much everybody who works with the DoD, you have this clause in your contract that states that you have to use only cloud service providers that are FedRAMP moderate or equivalent to that.
Okay.
What it needs to be FedRAMP moderate is that you have what's known as an authority to operate, which is an ATO, hence ATO. If you look on the FedRAMP Marketplace, you can actually Google the FedRAMP Marketplace. It's a government managed website where you can check every single cloud service provider or any kind of provider who does have an ATO, which is the authority to operate within the government. So for example, we'll use our database example. So if you're the database that has an agency come to you and say, yes, we want to use you. And you go, well, we don't have an ATO. Like we haven't done that. And the agency goes, okay, cool. Well, we'll sponsor you for that ATO. And you have to have a government agency sponsor you. If you don't have that, you have to have them sponsor you. They have to say, yes, we sponsor you guys. Check database people. We think you're great. We want you to come on board. Once that happens, you have to go through the whole process of getting those 300 plus controls evaluated by what's known as a 3PAO, not a C3PAO.
I was about to notice that. Right.
Yep. A 3PAO.
What does the A stand for? Assessment?
Third party assessment organization. So it's exactly like the C3PAO, but just without the C. So it's a third party assessment, or they also call it, some people call it a 3PAO. So it just either way.
These people in the government have too much fun.
So many acronyms, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So many. Oh
Get
my
it.
God. So
So
many. Yeah.
FedRAMP equivalent and ATO. So
Yeah. So if you get an ATO, then a 3PAO comes in, does an assessment of you, says yay or nay. Yes, they can get, in this case, FedRAMP moderate, right? We'll use that as the example. If they say, yep, you are ready to go with FedRAMP moderate. Okay, cool. Well, then you actually take that assessment and it gets sent to the FedRAMP Program Management Office, their PMO. And then they do the final assessment of what the 3PAO assessed and say either yes or no, we agree or don't agree with you. If they say, yes, I agree with you, then that database company gets put on the marketplace as an approved with an ATO ready to go for any government agency to use. So even though it was just for this one sponsoring one,
anyone.
Doesn't matter. So once that one federal agency sponsors you, anybody in the federal government can actually use your product. So it's a big deal for cloud service providers to be able to get an ATO, but it is a very long process. Like I said, it's 300 plus controls to get a moderate. That's a lot of controls. And it takes a very long time to get all of it done. Most places it takes like up to 18 months to get the whole process done, which is a long time. Now, so because of the fact that it's very difficult to get every single cloud service provider a sponsor and go through the whole process and rigmarole of the ATO, and also that's a lot for the PMO to do, let's be honest, then that's why they put in the option for equivalency.
If you don't have a government sponsor.
Exactly. Let's say you don't have a government sponsor, but you still want to actually be equivalent for all of the many different customers you have who have DFAR 7012 clauses. I mean, that's kind of important, right?
Right.
So if you want to support those customers and make sure that they can check all the boxes they need to check on their compliance, you have to check the boxes on your compliance as well. So any sort of cloud service provider would have to go through and basically kind of do, at this point, there's not definitive verbiage on what to do, what equivalent means. We have kind of like a guideline, but nothing finalized. They're hoping to kind of get that finalized in the next couple of months, but like we just don't have that finalization at this point.
Put it on a government timeline that might be a little bit longer.
Yeah, I'm hoping not. But because there's a lot of different companies who want to know what the actual, like, what is the real standard that the DoD actually wants. But what they have said is that they feel at this point equivalency, again, guidance, this is not official. The guidelines are sort of, okay, have you gone through the process of doing those 300 plus controls? Have you got them all assessed by a certified third-party assessor or a 3PAO or 3PAO? So that means that at that point, you'd get a letter of attestation from that 3PAO saying, yep, we think these people are cool and good to go. And in theory, you should be fine at that point. But again, we don't have any definitive, finalized, official, yes, this is the way forward stamp yet. But that is what everyone kind of assumes is going to be the way forward at this point. So it's kind of a wishy-washy answer, but unfortunately, we don't really have a good answer for it right now.
Well, let's see if we can't be a little bit more definitive on this last point. And then we can let the nice folks go home to bed and milk and cookies. Let's talk about becoming FedRAMP compliant. How do I become FedRAMP compliant? Noel.
Oh my goodness. It is a lot of work. There is a lot to be done with it. So again, for those of you out there who have an understanding of NIST 800-171 and for, the CMMC 2.0 framework, this is 3 times that. So it is not just looking at your organization. It's looking at a lot of individualized things that are specific only to cloud service providers. There's 17 control families instead of 14. And then again, there's the 300, I think it's 305, 306 and revision 5. It is a lot of information to get through. It's definitely doable for cloud service providers, but they have to be very committed to it. I mean, this is a lot of
overlap between NIST or any overlap.
There is. So the 110 controls that you see in the NIST 800-171 are sort of already baked in to the 853, which is the FedRAMP guidelines. So yeah, they're already in there. So if you've already done some NIST 800-171 within your company, then you've got at least the leg up. But one of the things that if you have an ATO at least, and we're assuming this is probably going to be how it is when you have equivalency as well, you do your first initial assessment of those 300 plus controls. You have somebody come in and do that, that final authentication, like, yep, you're good to go. Then the following year, you have to do another subset. Like you have to do 100, I think it's 115 or 105 or whatever. It's 1/3 of the controls you got assessed in the beginning. And every year you do another 1/3 so that in theory, by the end of the 3rd time, you've assessed everything twice. So the first time you do a big bulk of everything at once. The next year you do the 1/3, you do another third, you do another third each year. And then by then you would have, in those 3 years, reassessed everything.
And by the 4th year, you're at the beginning again?
Start all over again. You got it. And you just keep doing it. So, again, it also changes based on the revision. Like, for example, it's the 5th revision now. I think the revision 4 came out in like 2019 or 2018 or something. So I can't remember exactly the date, but this revision now, so that means that people going forward, when they get an assessment, are going to get assessed on the newer version now. So that, this one, removed, I think, like 21 controls, added another like 7 or 10 or 11 or whatever it was, like, so things have moved around. So there is a lot of like keeping up with that as well, and making sure that not only are you doing all the controls that you were assessed on originally, but also that you're doing the new ones that come out with these new revisions.
Right.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. But for anyone out there who's listening to our discussion of FedRAMP and FedRAMP compliance, hopefully this little short video has made it more understandable and at least given you a sense of how to get started, and giving you answers to some of your questions. As always, people can reach you at compliance@preveil.com. Also, if you want to sign up for a 15-minute session with the great Noel, there's going to be a link in the show notes. Do we have anything else to tell people, or should we just like let them go?
I think we should probably let them go.
Should we, like, the alarm bell has rung and time for your next class?
There you go.
All right, everyone. Thank you. Until next time.